Welcome back to This is Baseball. Welcome to the month of July. Welcome to the second half of the Major League Baseball season. Let's kick off the show with a standings update to begin the month of July. Let's start in the American League East. The Orioles and the Yankees are now tied for first place at the top of that division. Red Sox are 8.5 back. Guardians in the American League Central have a 6-game lead over the Twins. The Royals are 7 back. The American League West, Mariners are 3 games up on the Astros. I've been telling you, can't count the Astros out. They are 2 games above 500 and breathing down the Mariners' neck. They're 9-1 in their last 10 games. Let's move over to the American League wildcard standings. The top spot with a 7-game lead is the New York Yankees. The Minnesota Twins are in the second spot, and the Royals have the third spot. The Boston Red Sox are 1.5 games behind the Royals, with the Astros 3 back in the wild card chase. Over in the National League in the East, the Phillies lead that division. They are 8 games ahead of the Braves. Milwaukee Brewers leading the NL Central. They're 6 games up on the St. Louis Cardinals. The St. Louis Cardinals have had the best record in the league since mid-May and have drastically improved where they were earlier in the season. Out west, the Los Angeles Dodgers are leading the division. They're 7.5 games up on the Padres. And going to the wild card in the National League, the Braves have the first wild card spot. The Padres have the second spot, and the St. Louis Cardinals have the third spot. The Mets are right at 500. They're 1.5 games back. Arizona is 2.5 back. San Francisco and Pittsburgh are 3 back. I've been saying it all season. The extra wild card spot is making the trade deadline very interesting because there's so many teams that are hovering right around 500 or are within 3 or 4 games of a wild card spot that are just going to have really tough decisions to make here in about a month. And I think the strategy could be interesting for the trade deadline because I think if you're a team like the Orioles and the Yankees, or if you're on top of your division and you know, okay, we're going to make the playoffs, so you feel pretty good about it, do you make your trade deadline moves early because you know that you're buyers and you go talk to those teams that are very clearly sellers and try to get out in front of the teams that are kind of fringe playoff teams, and say a team that is really having to wait a couple weeks, like the Boston Red Sox, they're 1.5 games back out of the wild card spot, but are they going to be in that same spot 28 days from now when we're closing in on the trade deadline? So I think if you're a team that is firmly in it and you're a buyer today, I think it might be in your best interest to go ahead and try to make those moves to beat those teams that still have to wait and make those decisions. I think every team that is firmly in contention should be getting on the phone with teams like the White Sox and Marlins right now and saying, hey, I need an outfielder, I need a pitcher, I need a bat, I need a bullpen arm. And you have that, here's an offer that I can make, and just get ahead of it. We'll obviously break all that down once it gets a little closer to time, and as it's happening, we'll go through some of those trades. But before the trade deadline happens, we have to get to the All-Star game, and there have been some rule changes for the Home Run Derby. So I want to get into that and break that down and kind of give my thoughts on the rules that have been changed and just the Home Run Derby in general. So the first rule change, so last year and previous seasons, they did a tournament seed format. So it was 8 participants, and it would be the number 1 seed faces the 8 seed, the 2 faces the 7, the 3 faces the 6, and 4 faces the 5. And the seeding was based on how many regular season home runs that you had coming into the home run derby. So they're getting rid of the seeding in the first round, and what they're doing now is instead of the seeding taking place there, it's just going to be everybody takes their turn, and the top 4 performers are going to advance to the semifinals. And those 4 semifinalists will be broken down into 4 seeds, and those seeds will be determined by the amount of home runs that they hit in the first round of the derby. If there's a tie with multiple players hitting the same amount of home runs, they will break that tie with whoever hit the longest home run in that round will move on. Another addition to the rules is there's now a maximum number of pitches that each hitter can see in a round. So in previous seasons, the pitcher could throw basically as many pitches as they possibly could in the allotted time. Each round was 3 minutes. Other than the finals was 2 minutes. And now the way that it's going to work is there's still going to be timed rounds, but each player can only see 40 pitches per round. So the way it's going to work is the round ends when a player either hits the time limit or hits the pitch limit, whichever comes first. And so far, we only know of 1 participant, and it's Orioles' Gunnar Henderson. He has 26 home runs right now. Gunnar Henderson hit 28 home runs last year during his rookie season. So yeah, he's on pace for about 50 home runs this year. And as far as the other participants are concerned, we'll hear who the other 7 players are, obviously, probably in the next week and a half, because obviously the All-Star game is on the 15th of this month, which makes the Home Run Derby the 14th. So clock's ticking to see who's going to participate in that. Let's stick with the All-Star theme for a little bit here and take a look at the All-Star ballot right now. We're in phase 2 of the All-Star voting, and this is basically to figure out who the starters are going to be at each position. And in the American League, we have some tight races. So from MLB.com, first base, Vladimir Guerrero Jr. is leading the way. Ryan Mountcastle for the Orioles. You're going to see a lot of Orioles in the All-Star voting here. The fans have come out and support their team, as they should. Second base, Jose Altuve is leading the way to be the starter. Marcus Semien is behind him. Shortstop, Gunnar Henderson has 67% of the votes right now. Bobby Witt Jr. is behind him. Both of them are having incredible seasons. Unfortunately for Bobby Witt Jr., Gunnar Henderson is having a better season, and again, the Orioles fans are making sure that their guys are going to be down in Texas for the All-Star game starting. Third base, Jose Ramirez is leading the way for the Guardians. Jordan Westburg for the Orioles again, another Oriole that is close. Outfield, Juan Soto, Steven Kwan, Orioles, Anthony Santander, and Astros Kyle Tucker. At catcher, leading the way with the votes is Adley Rutschman, another Orioles player. Behind him is Salvador Perez. So you're going to see a lot of Orioles representation down in Texas. Go to DH, Yordan Alvarez for the Astros. And this one's kind of fun. Ryan O'Hearn is right behind him. That race is actually neck and neck. It's 51-49%. And I like the resurgence of Ryan O'Hearn's career. He was with the Kansas City Royals, kind of flamed out, and seems to be just like a big change of scenery guy, because this is his second year with the Orioles, and this is his second solid season so far. So happy to see that out of him. But down in the National League, Ketel Marte is leading the way at second base. Luis Arias with the Padres is right behind him. Trey Turner at shortstop over Mookie Betts. Mookie Betts wouldn't be available anyway because he's injured. And that just tells you how good Mookie Betts is. He's been out for like a month now, and he's top 2 in shortstop voting in the National League. Third base, Alec Boehm, Manny Machado. The outfield, Christian Yelich, Jurickson Profar. Jurickson Profar is having a good season. Fernando Tatis Jr., so 2 Padres there. Brandon Marsh for the Phillies, Teoscar Hernandez, and Nick Castellanos. So pretty stacked there as far as people trying to be the outfield starters. Catcher, William Contreras for the Brewers, JT Realmuto for the Phillies. DH, Shohei Ohtani, clearly. And then Kyle Schwarber is in second place in those votes. So that's just kind of a look at the second phase of the All-Star ballot. That is going to close tomorrow, I believe. And then we'll know who the All-Star starters are / who the All-Stars are. So I want to shift my attention over to the Pittsburgh Pirates for a second. So obviously, Pittsburgh called up Paul Skeens a little over a month ago, and he was the top pitching prospect, and he has come to the majors and has absolutely lived up to the expectations. He's made 9 starts. He's 4-0 in those starts. He has a 2.06 ERA. He has a whip of 1.032, and he's just been electric to watch. He's somebody that if you haven't watched him yet, next time he starts, make sure that you watch him play. He's electric. He has really good stuff. He throws really hard, and he could be a key piece to the Pittsburgh Pirates potentially finding their way into the playoffs this year, because if you have him on the mound, you feel pretty good about your chances of winning a game. And he's starting to make people think, could he win Rookie of the Year? Or could he even win Cy Young this year? I think if he continues pitching the way that he has over the first 9 starts of his career, and we get to the end of the season and he's got an ERA of, around 3, and just continuing to pitch at a high level, and you look and he's like the reason that the Pittsburgh Pirates, or one of the reasons that Pittsburgh maybe snuck into the playoffs, I think you'd have to consider not only Rookie of the Year, but is he a legitimate Cy Young candidate? So Paul Skeens is definitely somebody to watch this season and beyond. He's 22 years old, so he's just getting started. Obviously, this is rookie year. And contingent on health, he is going to be very fun to watch for a long time. So last weekend, I previewed some of the games that were, or some of the series that were coming up over the weekend, and there weren't really a lot that stuck out. The biggest one was the Royals and Guardians. It was really kind of make or break for the Kansas City Royals. They'd kind of hit a skid offensively between the A's, Rangers, and Marlins series that they played in. They didn't play very well. Went on a 25-plus inning scoring drought. And really, that's not a good place to be when you are setting up a 4-game series against not only the division leader, but the best team in all of the American League in the Cleveland Guardians. And I'm really happy with the way that it went for the Royals, because they very easily could have folded and just lost 3 out of 4 and pretty much could have just said goodbye to the chances of winning the division. But instead, going into the weekend, worst case scenario, they had already taken the first 2 games of the series. So worst case scenario, they were splitting with the Guardians. So going into the weekend, they already had 2 up on the Guardians. They lost on Saturday, then won again on Sunday. Seth Lugo, again, was phenomenal. He has the most wins in the majors right now at 11. And not only is that good for the Royals, just mentally and as a team, like, hey, we just beat the best team in the majors, but they also kept their division chances alive. Because, like I said, if they would have lost 3 out of 4 or got swept, it would have been, okay, the division is over. We're 10 games back. We're 9 games back, whatever. We need to start focusing on making sure that we're a wild card team. But now they took care of business when they needed to. Their schedule lightens up a little bit in July, so they should be able to rattle off, in my opinion, some wins. I was obviously wrong about that before because they had a 9-game stretch right before Cleveland where they should have done that. But I think with their opponents coming up, they have a good opportunity to get some wins. They're going to play the Rays, the Rockies, Cardinals, Red Sox before the All-Star break. Obviously, Cardinals playing really good baseball. Red Sox have turned it around a little bit. But after the All-Star break, they play the White Sox, Diamondbacks, Cubs, and then White Sox again to end the month of July. So July should be a positive month for the Kansas City Royals in their record. And I think something interesting about the Guardians is at this point in the season, they really haven't had a skid. So I'm kind of waiting for Cleveland to have a slump as a team. And I'm thinking it might not be this month in July because they don't have a very tough schedule either. But I'm looking at August for the Guardians. They have to play the Orioles, the Twins, the Brewers, and the Yankees. See where the Rangers are at that time. And then they'll play the Royals as well. And then they'll end with the Pirates. But I think potentially that could be in August when the Royals maybe find an opening to winning the division. Because I think a lot of the Royals' tough schedule is behind them. Or maybe not behind them, but it lightens up for quite a while. It'll pick back up again in late August when they face the Phillies, and then they'll play 7 out of 11 against the Guardians. They'll have the Astros in that stretch as well. So they're definitely going to go through another gauntlet of a schedule, kind of the similar way that they did at the beginning of June. But in August, that'll be post-trade deadline, so the Royals could be a better team. They could pick up a bat for the outfield. They could pick up a bullpen arm or two and be a significantly better team at that point when they're facing those teams that I listed. All I know is the second half for the Royals should be really fun. I think the division race and the playoff race as a whole, getting into August and September, could be really good. There's going to be a lot of interesting matchups that I think will have playoff implications because there's going to be teams that are vying for those playoff spots that are going to be playing against each other head-to-head. So you're going to see some high-tension series and some high-stakes series. And at least in the American League, it's going to be, honestly, a really good time. Let's go ahead and take a look ahead to the weekend and see the series that you need to watch. So, Red Sox-Yankees face off, obviously, best rivalry in baseball. This time it'll be in New York. Phillies and Braves go head-to-head against each other. Obviously, they've built up a nice rivalry over the last few years, and it's an interdivision rivalry. The Phillies are on top of the Braves. That's going to be in Atlanta. And the Twins and Astros are going to face off. Those are two teams that are currently sitting in a wild card race with each other. And then the Dodgers and Brewers, both leaders of their division, will also be facing off. So a pretty good slate of games this weekend. But that is all I have this week on This Is Baseball. Have a happy and safe 4th of July. I will see you next week.